Hey guys, Josh here. Welcome back to the All Out Safaris podcast, your go-to podcast for all things safari. With me today, Shelby.
Hey guys.
Today we're going to talk about planning a safari for the first time. So there's a lot of things that go into planning a safari and a lot of things that you've got to take into account. So the most important thing would be choosing a destination. But in this episode, we're going to talk about the steps that you take. So are you looking for a budget? Are you looking for luxury? Are you planning a safari with kids? Are you looking for a more specialized safari, like a photographic safari? Sort of what are you wanting to experience? So like I said, the first thing that you've got to think about is the destination. That plays a massive role depending on what experience you're looking for. So if you're looking for a private photographic safari, places that cater for photographers specifically, so like a Sabi Sand safari would be something you'd be more interested, or in like a Madikwe safari. But then if you're looking for something, a more general safari experience, let's say you're a first-time safari goer, something like our classic Kruger safari, where you can experience the both closed safari vehicles and open safari vehicles. You can stay inside the game reserve as well, so you get a proper African experience at the same time. So there can be tours like your more well-rounded tours and then your more specialized tours. All of our safaris are private safaris, so that makes it a lot easier to cater for your guys' needs. So the best thing you can do is talk to people like us who can guide you to the right safari or even customize a safari for you. So we currently offer safaris to 3 different destinations: Madikwe Game Reserve, Pilanesberg National Park, and Kruger National Park. So they are all completely different. So Madikwe is a place like no other. Somewhere like the Kruger and the Pilanesberg, have similarities, but Madikwe is a combination of like 5 places in one. It's a combination of the Pilanesberg, Kruger, place like Twalu. It's semi-arid desert, which mixed with Marulafelt, open savanna, thickets, rocky outcrops, mountains. It's a place that literally has it all. It is a private game reserve as well. So from a game viewing perspective, you'll never have more than 3 vehicles on a sighting. So if you're looking for a really intimate experience with wildlife, somewhere like Madikwe is a fantastic place to go. And from a photographic perspective as well, I worked as a photographer in Madikwe for a year, and the photographic opportunities that you have in a place like Madikwe are just off the charts. It can compete with even places like your Sabi Sands, which we do actually offer in our Kruger safaris as well. So on the Kruger side of things, Kruger is probably your most diverse game reserve in the whole of South Africa. It's the size of a small country. So the variety of opportunities that you have into not just sightings wise, but again, photographically, experiences, no day in the Kruger is ever the same. Not that it's the same in other places, but there's just something about the Kruger. There's a reason it's one of the most famous national parks in the whole of the world. It's probably one of our favorite of the 3, and I think it's our most popular of the 3, to host, just because of how popular it is. And I think the Big 5 is a massive thing in the Kruger. With it being a public park, a lot of people will think in the public parks you don't have game viewing of such necessarily high quality. But I mean, basically every tour we generally see the Big 5, and sometimes even multiple times a day. So nothing's obviously guaranteed, but the Kruger as an overall safari destination, especially if you're a first-time visitor, is probably one of the best places you can go. It's good quality sightings as well. It may be a public and national park, which means you do get other private vehicles that enter. The quality of sightings are still fantastic, especially in areas where a lot of research is done, which is mainly where we operate. We're involved in a lot of leopard research down in the south of Kruger. And then, lions are a massive thing in Kruger. There are so many lions in Kruger. So from a big cat's perspective, Kruger is a great place, especially when you're looking for something that may be slightly more affordable. So with Madikwe being a private game reserve, and even the Sabi Sands, it does cost more because of the privacy that you have, from a sightings perspective. But the Kruger really, really does offer it all. And even things like wild dogs. Wild dogs being so endangered, an animal that not many people get to see. They aren't seen 5 times a day, like let's say, like lions or whatever it may be, or you'll see elephants 10 times a day or something like that. Wild dogs, you don't see much in South Africa because of just how endangered they are. They're not territorial, so finding them can be a challenge, but Kruger is definitely one of your go-to places. Madikwe is also fantastic for wild dogs. Probably some of my best wild dog sightings over the past 10 years have all been in the year that I spent in Madikwe. So close. You can off-road in place like Madikwe as well, so that's another advantage that I did forget to mention. But Kruger as an overall safari destination, you really can't go wrong. Then you get Pilanesberg. So we, as you heard in our intro episode, if you haven't listened to that, listen to that. Now we'd recommend that. But Pilanesberg is a place we've grown up going to for, 10, 15 years, 15 years in Shelby's case, something like that. It's a game reserve that's incredibly, first of all, underrated. There is so much that it does have to offer. It is a less popular park compared to like the Kruger. It is a lot smaller. So maybe, it can offer its challenges from a game viewing perspective because it's a smaller place. The Kruger, if if another guide mentions to me there's a leopard 15 kilometers away, we can get there. Where Pilanesberg, it's a very high concentration of animals, and they're mostly all in the center of the park because that's where all the water is. So where there's water, there's going to be wildlife because that's how these animals survive, especially in a time like the dry season. However, Pilanesberg is incredibly unique in terms of the kind of sightings you can have because of the environment. So Pilanesberg is an old volcanic crater. A lot of people would have heard of places like the Ngorongoro crater. Pilanesberg's basically the same of that, but it's multiple craters that have imploded. And from a sightings perspective, really unique. It's also a place where, the environment is also very different. So Pilanesberg is a place where you can't be in a spot in Pilanesberg and say, this reminds me of a place in the Kruger, or this reminds me of a place in Madikwe. There's not a set environment. Where the Kruger, you'll have something like your Mopani Veld, then your Sauerveld, and then your general savanna, where Pilanesberg is all very similar. However, it's not the same as anywhere else. It's a game reserve that also from an aesthetic perspective. So if you're someone who loves good views, great sunsets, just that peace and tranquility, Pilanesberg is definitely a safari for you. Pilanesberg Safari, it's also a much quieter park. It's nowhere near as popular as a place like Kruger or even, a place like Madikwe. But it's so different. It's so unique. Only photos can sort of really explain it to you. I mean, there's a certain vibe that it has that these other places don't have. So all of those 3 safari destinations have great things to them. And obviously, like I said, if you want a more private, intimate experience, especially when you're really close to the animals, a place like Madikwe would be great. If you want an overall sort of rounded safari experience, the Kruger, you can never go wrong. And then if you want something slightly unique, that you sort of want to just expand your horizons, especially if you're someone who's a seasoned traveler, Pilanesberg's definitely a place to try if you haven't been there before.
Then we wanted to go through some of the safaris that we do offer in these 3 destinations. At the moment, we just have one in Madikwe called the Wilderness Escape. And we allow the guests to stay at Jackie's Lodges. And basically what this tour entails is that it's all-inclusive, handled mostly by the lodge. But you will have Josh with you who guides. And you can enjoy a 4, a 5, or even a 6-day safari. Then at the Pilanesberg, we offer budget tours, mid-range tours, as well as the more luxury tours. So with regards to budget, we offer like a day tour. So that can be open vehicle, closed vehicle. Then our budget safari is exactly what it is, where it's just closed vehicle drives, no open vehicle drives. Then for our mid-range, it's the Prestige Safari, which will combine both closed and open vehicles drives. Then you've got the more luxury ones, which is our Signature Safari, which is staying in the park at a couple of the lodges, and that will just be open vehicle drives, no matter how long you stay. Then the other one, the Royale Safari, is staying in Sun City, but also just open vehicles drives. Then with our Kruger ones, we have pretty much the same, where it's also budget to luxury, and even ultra luxury. So there, with our adventurous safari, it's basically the same like the Pilansberg, where it's just closed vehicle safaris, no matter how long you stay. Then for our mid-range tours, we have the Kruger Panorama Tour, which is a tour through the Blythe River Canyon that leads into your safaris. And it's a combination also of open and closed vehicle drives. Because of the nature of the panorama tour, we do tend to stay in the Hazy View area, but obviously if you would prefer to stay in the park, we can also organize that. Then we have our classic Kruger Safari, which is the most popular safari. And pretty much in the title, it's quite self-explanatory. It's a classic safari in the Kruger, which is where we tend to stay inside the park in the bungalows. And then we have a combination of open and closed drives. And then lastly, for our luxury Kruger, we have two. The Kruger Grand Escape, which is where at the moment we're staying at a choice between Lukimbi and Shalati, which is that train on the bridge. With this being a luxury tour, it means that you have open vehicle drives. Then for the greater Kruger area, we have the Sabi Sands Predator experience, and that's staying between the choice of Aratusa or Elephant Plains. And again, because it's a luxury tour, it means that you will only be on open drives the whole time. I will let Josh explain the difference between the normal Kruger area and the greater Kruger area. But basically, I just want to say that when you have found the right destination, you would then have to look at when you would want to go, because each time of year offers something unique, and those might impact the time of year you want to go on safari or even what kind of safari.
So even if you're a photographer, the time of year plays a role because various times of year offer different opportunities. So if you're someone who really loves greenery in your photos, if you want those lush, bright colors, summer is the time for you. There's water everywhere, the bush is green. For those kind of photos, summer is just the best time. And then just from a colors perspective, you have even from sunsets, right? So in the summertime, which is November to February for us, the sky often around sunset is a lot more purple and pink, where in winter it's that bright flare of red and orange and yellow. And then that obviously comes out in the grass as well. So if you're someone who looks more for that sort of golden hour kind of look in your photos and you really want that golden light, winter is probably going to benefit you more. It's also a lot drier. So if you're wanting to photograph animals drinking, winter is when you're going to go. There are very limited sources of water, so most of the animals will gather around a set source of water, which could be, let's say, a waterhole, specific drainage line, whatever it may be. You can often sit out and wait at waterholes around winter time, where in summer there's so much trapped water in the bush. To wait at a waterhole and hope an animal can come and drink isn't necessarily going to be the play. And then even if you're someone now who enjoys really dramatic black and white photos with like really dramatic skies, summertime is going to be more beneficial for you. A lot more clouds, a lot more rain. So it really depends on the kind of photographer you are, sort of what your, I guess you can say, niche is, or what your preference or style is. The time of year then will make a difference for you. And then even if there's a specific animal that you're wanting to photograph, so if you are wanting something, let's say like a leopard in a tree, you're not going to see as many leopards in trees in winter. There's no shade in the trees. Maybe if it's cold and an overcast day, then maybe you'll see them in a tree, in a dead tree in winter. But summertime, if you're wanting to see leopards in trees, for example, then lions, it's a lot hotter in summer. So if you're wanting to spend a lot more time with these animals, like lions, who are very sleepy most of the day, really, mainly nocturnal, you see them early morning, late afternoon. But in winter, you can see them a bit later into the morning and a bit earlier from the afternoon. So if you're wanting to spend more time with them, then winter will be the time for you. But again, that's where you'll just seek guidance from us to sort of help you decide what time of year to go on your safari. But then as a photographer, a lot of people don't necessarily know exactly what a photographic safari is. So basically, a photographic safari is not much different to a normal safari, except you're guided photographically. So the guide will help you get into positions for photographic purposes. It's not just so you can see the animal clearly, it's to get you in a position where the angles are good for your photos, but also the guide will help you with your camera settings and a lot of those things that can really help you get the best results out of the sighting, depending on obviously what you're trying to capture. Because obviously in photography there's so many different kinds of photography, and for different kinds of photos different settings would be needed, and things like that. But that's when sometimes the private game reserves will benefit you more. So that's how I'll get now into the difference sort of between Kruger and then Greater Kruger. So the Greater Kruger game reserves are private game reserves. Sabi Sands is a private game reserve. It is unfenced between the Kruger itself and the Greater Kruger. So animals do roam freely between the Greater Kruger and the Kruger itself. But like I said, private game reserves, usually no more than 3 vehicles on a sighting. Sometimes leopard sightings are only 2 vehicles. Sightings with cubs, only 2 vehicles. A lot of the more intimate sightings are only 2 vehicles. So that will allow your guide maybe a bit of an easier access to getting into different angles. And in a lot of these private game reserves, you can also off-road. Just depends on the rules within that park. But we do host our photographic safaris in the Kruger as well. So we have Madikwe and then Greater Kruger, but then even in the normal Kruger National Park itself. So if you're someone who isn't too fussed about necessarily something like being in a private game reserve, photographically, the Kruger National Park itself is also great. I mean, we've gotten so many fantastic photos, because we are able to get sightings that are fairly close as well, because you can't off-road in the Kruger National Park. A lot of people aren't sure, so that's at least to clarify it for you. Same with the Pilanesberg, you can't off-road. However, if your guide is knowledgeable enough, a guide should be able to get you sightings and understand animal behavior to be able to navigate a sighting in a way and understand animal behavior well enough to know if the animal is going to be close to the road or not. A photographic guide can still help you get into those good positions, help you with your camera settings to get the most out of your gear and the sighting. But our photographic safari is also beginner friendly. We're not going to say, don't come on a safari with us because you don't really know your camera or things like that. We're there to help you. But you also don't have to be a photographer to just go on a safari. A lot of people will think, especially private safaris, a lot of private safari companies like us specifically cater for wildlife photographers. A lot of companies do, but you don't have to be a photographer to join us. We have so many people who aren't even photographers, who are just there for the experience. So even if you're coming as a family and your husband's, let's say, a photographer, or one of your kids are a photographer, but you aren't, it's not going to impact your experience. We're still going to try and get you the best sightings possible.
The last thing that we wanted to speak about today is planning a safari with children, specifically children 12 years and younger. So the first thing that is not only specific for children, but for you as well as the parents, is safety. One of them being bugs and bug spray, as well as taking malaria tablets for areas that are sort of have a risk of malaria, which is the Kruger only. Pilanesberg and Madikwe are malaria-free areas. Most of our safaris are actually child-friendly, so we're not going to have a problem if you have children coming on safari with you. However, there are various lodges that are perhaps not as children-friendly. For example, in the Sabi Sands, just purely because the lodges themselves are not fenced from the wildlife. So sometimes you can have quite dangerous wildlife walking in the camp itself. But luckily, the rest of our safaris are pretty much children-friendly. We do have an episode coming out later where we address safari etiquette, and in there is some safety tips, so please do give that a listen. As mentioned earlier, we do have safaris that have a combination of both closed and open vehicles drives. Sometimes a closed vehicle safari would be best for children, especially when they are perhaps quite young and sometimes can get uncomfortable and sometimes make noise. But in that case, if you choose something like our classic Kruger or the Kruger Panorama Tour or even the Pilanesberg Prestige Safari, we would just replace the open vehicle safaris with your closed vehicle safaris. But that is where you should get in touch with us, where we can assist you to even customize a tour sometimes, because thankfully we do actually offer that most of our, or actually all of our safaris are customizable. So we will be able to organize something for your children.
So to recap, the first thing you've got to look at is what experience you're looking for. Because from there, you choose a destination or the kind of safari. So if you're looking for maybe something more luxury or maybe something a bit more budget friendly, you'd go with that. And then you've obviously got to take into account whether you're traveling with younger children, because then obviously your destination and safari will impact that as well. And then you've got to think about if you're looking for a more sort of rounded safari or something more specialized like a photographic safari, which we mentioned, because again, destination plays a massive role in that. But I think it's as simple as that. Obviously, we've gone a bit more into depth, but if there's more topics that you do want us to talk about, please feel free to shoot us an email, send us a DM. All of the links to our social media and email and even to our website will be in the description. So if you are wanting to find out more information about us, you can just look at those links, shoot us a DM if you have any questions or if there are any, like I said, topics that you want us to talk about. But for now, I think that's all. So until next time.
Bye.